Hello and welcome back. Um, so this is my take or my 2 cents on some of the common things that I've been seeing on X6M or X5M forums, where people are asking about common issues with them, mostly around vehicles that are over 60, 70, or 80,000 miles. Um, what are some of the issues you might see? So how I'm going to structure this is, why did I buy it, and what type of issues did I run into? What was my purpose of getting this? Um, and then what have I done in the past about 2 years that I've owned this? Um, Starting off, this is a 2011 E70 X5M. I bought it with about 85,000 miles. Currently, it sits about 94, 95 at the moment. So I've done about close to 10,000 miles in about 2 years, and a lot of maintenance. Because when I was looking for an X5M, I was after a specific trim and a specific color. I was lucky that I did find this one. This is pretty much has all the options except two things. One would probably be the LED headlights and the rear entertainment. Other than that, this is pretty loaded. Extended leather, perforated seats with heated and cooled, rear heated seats, and so on. So, um, I'll come to the maintenance side of this in a little bit, but if I talk about some of the common issues that you might, see if you buy an X5M or X6M from the same generation, um, and even before common issues, but let me put out my 2 cents of why you might see these common issues on most of the units. So past 70 or 60,000 miles in every unit that you would, or most of the units, I should say, you will see leaks. It could be upper oil pan leak or lower oil pan leak. The CCV system or CCV lines might leak. The turbo oil return lines could potentially leak. The coolant lines might leak for the turbos. Now, this might sound scary. It's not scary, because those are some common issues that can be DIY'd. Um, and the reason why I bought this, I knew even no matter what type of issues it has, I'm going to DIY it myself. So now, I'm sure whoever is viewing this video, there will be two type of people. One would probably be looking at doing a DIY themselves and fixing issues, or you might take it to a shop. Now, when it comes to anyone who is looking to take it to a shop, uh, I would highly recommend that you get an aftermarket warranty. There are several options in the market that would cover from your transmission to your engine to your electrical to everything, depending on how much you want to pay a month. But so if you're looking to take it to a shop to get any issues that might come up fixed, it would be the best option to get an aftermarket warranty. Um, will be the least headache for you. And the reason why I say that is, um, the motor inside the engine bay is pretty cramped. So to get to any faulty, like for example, oil return lines. So for oil return lines, you have to remove a bunch of stuff on top of the turbo. You might have to remove the turbos and then get access to the oil return lines. So naturally, those things will add up hours to your service. So if you're somebody who's looking to take it to a shop, I would say you should get an aftermarket warranty. That would kind of keep you covered in terms of the cost of maintenance or issues. Um, the second group that I kind of fall in that group as well is people who will DIY things themselves. Um, I have done a lot of maintenance on this. I have replaced the valve cover gaskets. I've replaced the vacuum pump. I have replaced oil separators. I've replaced the entire CCV system. I have replaced turbo oil return lines. I've replaced the coolant Y pipe that's in between bank one and bank two. I have replaced the water pump, the thermostat. I've replaced the entire front suspension, part of the rear suspension. I've lowered it on down springs. So I've been pretty much, I've touched most of the components of the car because that's how I wanted to fix it up. So for me, it was, I wouldn't say a fixer upper type of project, but this was something that I wanted to fix up myself, just so I can touch each component of the car and I know what type of health is it in. Um, so, so, so again, so those are two types of groups of people who would, who are probably looking to buy this. And I would say, if you're looking to DIY, it might be a scary motor to look at, but it's not. If you have access to ISTA or ISTA Plus, I think they'll lay out the instructions on how to sort of tackle each of those jobs. Is very straightforward, and I think it's doable to an extent. I mean, I don't really have a technical background. I just have, interest in fixing whatever cars I have. So if I could do it, I think anyone can do it. Now, the other group who would take it to shops is, I think, getting an aftermarket warranty is the way to go, because these, I mean, the jobs on this car can get very expensive. Parts may slightly be expensive compared to the non-M cars, but the labor itself is it's going to be pretty steep. When I say steep, if I give you an example of the valve cover gaskets, now the gaskets themselves were probably about $60, and when I had checked with BMW to get the valve cover gaskets replaced, I was the quote I got from them was $4,200, and then from an indie shop, it was close to about $3,600 just to do the valve cover gaskets. I, on the other hand, took about, I don't know, a week and a half, because I just did it whenever I could find time. I would just, do things and just set it aside. So it took me about close to 2 weeks to do valve cover gaskets. Yeah, it costed me some of my time, but it wasn't as expensive as probably $4,200. So, so from that perspective, um, I would definitely choose DIY with this car, because it can get pretty expensive when you talk about maintenance, because there's hardly any room in the engine bay to do anything. So to get to anything, you have to remove 5 different components or parts to get access. Um, so that's that. Now to summarize that, again, if you're going to DIY yourself, yeah, it's doable, not too hard. You don't need. You might need some special tools depending on what you're doing, but in general, anything, any DIY job, it's not too hard to do on it. It might be scary, but it's not once you kind of get in there. Um, Again, second, if you're taking your shop, get a warranty. That's going to save you a lot. It might cost you to kind of begin with, but it will save you a lot. Um, the third thing would be what to look for when you're looking at a car. Now, how everything is kind of covered with plastics and covers from top to bottom, you will not really be able to see much if you're looking for an oil leak, or if you're looking for, whether or not the coolant lines are cracking and so on. So, so I would recommend that you take it to, a good shop for pre-purchase inspection. It could be an independent shop, or it could be, a BMW dealership, or it could be any other dealerships as well. Might cost you about 150 to $300, but I think it's well worth it if you're really concerned about knowing, what kind of health is a car in. Um, and also, I think when you're looking at units that have anywhere from, 60,000 to 90,000 miles, or even over 100,000 miles, they all will have issues. They all will have different set of issues, but I personally would prefer something that has higher mileage than lower mileage. And the reason for that is naturally whoever the owner is had to get certain things done from a shop to make it, to be worth being on the road, so to speak. So if you look for a unit with more miles, try to look for a solid maintenance history. And if it has a good maintenance history, meaning if you look at a Carfax and it has records where so and so has been replaced and so has been done, and then gives you also, the shop name and so on. So I would personally, that's what I would do is look at a Carfax and see what kind of history does it come with, what has been replaced. If it's one owner or two owner car or three owner car, naturally the more the owners, it's been through so many hands, and not everyone keeps their cars the same way. So the lower the owners, the better it is, and the more the maintenance history, that's even better. So low mileage ones will eventually have some natural common issues. As I said, oil leaks could be lower pan, upper pan, valve covers, CCV system, the vacuum pump gasket might leak, the oil return line might leak, the coolant lines to the turbos might leak, and there are several reasons for the leaks, but the most common ones are BMW sort of uses some biodegradable materials. That's per my own research. So because of those, they eventually deteriorate over time, and then they kind of give up. And the other thing is these motors, BMW S63 or S63 TU, and the other variants, they all run very hot. I'm saying the thermostat temperature, the factory thermostat, I think is about 105 or 108 degrees Fahrenheit. um, that's one of the mods that I did. Is I replaced the thermostat with a lower temperature one. Um, the amount of heat this engine produces, any plastics within the engine bay, they become brittle over time. And then, literally, as soon as you touch them, they will crack and shatter to pieces. CCV system, that's why they fail most of the time, because they've been through so many heat cycles that as soon as you touch it, they just break apart. Um, So yeah. Now coming back to the topic. Now the only other thing I would want to talk about is common issues. Um, so the common issues with these is oil leaks. Oil leaks. I, at least in my ownership in the past 2 years, um, knock on wood somewhere, that nothing major has happened. Everything that I've done to it was purely out of preventive maintenance. I just wanted to make sure that suspension components or anything, the hoses within the engine bay, they were not going bad and so on. So I replaced all of those. Um, but but nothing has failed as such, is what I'm trying to say. When I say a component, I mean auxiliary water pumps or the mechanical water pump, or anything along those lines. So it's a pretty solid motor because, from my perspective, I experienced it. Um, Other variants of the S63, they suffer from a lot of issues. I wouldn't say a lot, but they suffer from certain issues that are very common across the platforms. Like, for example, the F10 M5, or I think F90 M5, could be wrong, but one of the two have a known issue with head gaskets, um, or just like the E90, the E92 M3, they are known for having issues with their rod bearings. These don't have that. Yes, you will find certain, um, you know, cases where somebody's S63, the rod bearings gave up. Yeah, it's common because that all depends. That's kind of one off in my perspective, because it depends on how you drive that, how you take care of the motor, how often are you doing oil service, and so on. Um, so they're not that common. I've heard a lot of people saying that valve stem seals is one of the common issues in these. Um, Again, it depends. It depends on how a specific vehicle was maintained, and that kind of drives what fails in that. I haven't had any issues with it in terms of the valve stem seals or the rod bearings or anything of that sort. I change oils every 3,000 miles, and I've been averaging roughly about 4,000 miles a year. I don't get to drive it so much, but but I think it's pretty good. Puts a smile on my face every time I drive it. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to cover for the most part, because I know there's a lot of, I wouldn't say confusion. There's just too much information out there, and it's not too hard for people to kind of get confused with what's wrong or what's right. So, in a nutshell, from my perspective, they all will have issues. They all will have different type of issues. Every car has issues, except the Japanese one. But for the most part, if you are in getting in or are already in the BMW community, you know that BMWs have certain issues that you know you will see in those. Um, but you might not see them if the unit or the vehicle is maintained well in terms of oil service and so on. So they're not scary. In the engine, they might seem very scary, but I think this is one heck of a truck. Drives amazing, sounds amazing, handles amazing. I wouldn't expect an SUV or a truck to handle this way. Um, but yeah, so now going back to the very first topic that I mentioned, then why did I buy it? Um, I was in the market for a family SUV. I have two kids, so this was basically a replacement of a Highlander. I had a 2018 Highlander, and uh, I stumbled upon the fact that E70 X5M. Well, BMW made an M variant in the E70, and I was surprised. I started looking. Um, it took me about four months to find this specific one, and I had to drive out 1,200. No, not 1,200. What 1,200 back and forth both ways. So I drove from Virginia to Michigan, Detroit, to pick this up. Um, This specific one, as I said, is a 2011. Came with 86,000 miles. It's custom tuned by a company out in Poland, and it probably makes close to about, I don't know, 700. I haven't put it on dyno, not claiming that, but that's what I was told. Um, is catalyst, has an exhaust, upgraded entertainment screen or whatever. The dash has extended leather. Um, yeah, I think I've pretty much been in love with this thing ever since I kind of drove it the first time. Um, Puts a smile on my face every single freaking time. So, so yeah, that's my take on common issues. But I'll try to make a more focused video when it comes to what are some of the issues, what have I done, and why you should consider um, doing those as well as a preventive maintenance. All right, thank you. Let me know in the comments if you have any other suggestions in terms of what you want to see or any other topics that I should cover. Thank you. Have a good one.